96.8% of freelancers on the Upwork platform don't do any of the things that I'm going to mention below. Or maybe if they do them here and there, but not consistently. And it's crazy when you think about it, because Upwork as a platform is something where if you do certain things on a consistent basis, you would be successful. So if you watch this video from the beginning to the end and start implementing things that I'm going to mention, you can rank yourself and find yourself in the next few weeks or even few months in being the top 1% to 5% of freelancers on Upwork. I'll wait until you hear the last point in this video that's going to completely blow you away and completely change the way you approach Upwork. But we'll get to that afterwards. For now, let's get right to it. The one thing that I always notice with individuals on Upwork is that they rarely network with the clients that they're working with. And what do I mean by that? Whenever I discuss with freelancers about the clients that they have on Upwork, the way that they describe the relationship, it's almost like a one-sided relationship where the client gives them work, the freelancer finishes the work, and they hand it in. And then that process continues for maybe a few days, a few weeks, a few months, and that's that. After the job is done, the client says, hey, listen, it was a great job. It was nice knowing you. The freelancer says the same thing as well. They tell them, hey, listen, by the way, could you leave this review for me as well? Great. All right. That's it. And they go on their way. But you're missing so much more over here during this process. Because think about this for a second. When a client hires you, the client probably has a business or has hired you on behalf of a client who has a business, and at the same time probably has a vast network of individuals that they network with on a daily basis for either things that they need done, jobs that they have, and other things as well. In that scenario, when you develop that relationship with the client and you get the job for the first time, after you work with them, build a rapport with them, it's always good, and something that I recommend is that you should start discussing with the client to further understand their business needs. Say the client hired you as an accountant and they hired you for their company and all they need is accounting work from you, but you start to notice that they have other things that are coming up and they start discussing certain other tasks that they have. Rather than you staying quiet over here, here's the opportunity to talk to the client and say, by the way, I noticed that you brought this up last week. I can definitely assist with this in case you need this in the future. The client may not take your opportunity right now, but somewhere down the line, they know that they can reach out to you for that as well. In another scenario too, if you're working with a client and you know something is not right, maybe their website doesn't look good, maybe there's an issue with their sales process or marketing process or accounting process or any other process of the business, rather than staying quiet over here because you're thinking to yourself like, well, wait a minute, the client hired me for this role, I don't want to get into anything else. That's the perfect opportunity to bring something up to the client and say, look, by the way, I was thinking about this over the weekend or during the time that we're working together, and I noticed these few things that I think that could be beneficial for your business. The client is going to appreciate that, number one, because then you're going out of your way to tell them things that need to be addressed. And number two, at that point in time, you can have the conversation and say, look, I understand all these points exist. I may not be able to help out with all these things, but these specific things, if you ever need something, even if you just need advice or guidance, and that's something that it's not something part of the contract altogether, I'm more than happy to do that. And trust me when I tell you, a client will jump on that opportunity to talk to you after and say, you raised a really good point. I would love to have that conversation with you and discuss and find out what is your advice on this? What is your thoughts on this? Because once the client trusts you as an expert in the industry and also at the same time trust you when you're giving valuable advice, who are they going to next? When they have a little bit of budget and they know they have to address a few things, obviously they're going to come to you. And this is something that I've noticed in my own experience on Upwork as well. There have been many times where I was hired for something very, very specific. It was a very, very small thing that needed to be done. However, during that process, while I was working with them, I happened to point out and say, look, I know that I was hired for this thing, but when I was on your website, I noticed that you had these issues. When you were doing your email marketing campaigns, there were actually other issues that came up that I want to bring to your attention. By bringing it to their attention, the client, number one, was grateful. And then at the same time also, the opportunity completely changed because the client said to me that, look, I'm very busy. And for me to hire 2, 3, or 4 other freelancers to address all things that you're mentioning, I don't have the budget for that. I don't have the resources for that. And I can't even manage that many more freelancers. Is it possible that you could give me a price and you can handle all these things as well? And of course, I happily obliged. And in that scenario, a project that was very small ballooned and turned to something else completely, where now I'm working with the client almost exclusively on a much, much more larger scale than what I was initially hired for. And this isn't one example or 2 examples. This has something that has been done, and this is something that I've experienced multiple times in the past. So this is something that I highly recommend, which is networking with clients for additional work, which the majority of people on the platform right now don't do this. They put their head down, they get in, they get out, they do the work, and that's it. Speaking of client interactions, there are good interaction with clients and there are negative interaction with clients. The majority of freelancers that I know on the Upwork platform, when the interactions are good, they forget about it and they move on. But when they have negative interactions, rarely do they go back and revisit what happened over there to improve and fix and to work on themselves so that doesn't happen again. This is something that I've spoken to many freelancers about. And for the majority of them, whenever they go through a scenario where they have a negative interaction, they always, for the most part, blame it on the client. They blame it on someone else. Oh, it was, the client had no idea what he was talking about, or the client was completely misinformed over here, or there's a miscommunication over here. And sure, I agree that those things are true as well. But at the end of the day, when you think about it, it all comes down to you. And if you're not willing to sit down and sit there and spend the time necessary to look at your mistakes and look to see what you work on, you'll never improve from there. And the majority of people that I know on the platform rarely do this. The reason why that is that you have to then become vulnerable with yourself and really admit to yourself where your shortcomings were. And for most people, this makes them feel so uncomfortable that they don't even bother doing this. But I can tell you right now that if you take that opportunity to do that, that puts you in the 1% category of freelancers who actually do that and then actually work on it. And this is something that I experienced myself as well. I started on Upwork and I had, a few good jobs, and that led to a few other good jobs as well. And I thought I was the king of the world until I had one negative interaction, and that brought me crashing down. And what ended up happening was that the client said that I don't think you are qualified enough for this role. And for me personally, that caught me so off guard that rather than addressing that, I just completely ignored that, pretended like it didn't even happen. And after the contract was finished and I got a bad review, I just moved on from there. And that was the worst thing that I could do, because a few weeks down the road, I had another negative interaction where I had a bad review and the same thing happened to me again. When that happened 2 times and that happened the 3rd time, at that point in time, I realized, wait a minute, there's a pattern happening over here. Rather than me simply just ignoring that and then moving on from there and getting another job and then getting a few other jobs so I can hide that review at the bottom of my profile, I need to go back and do an analysis of myself and figure out what happened over there. And when I went back, I realized that the first bad review that I received was because of the fact that I had taken on work where I was not 100% sure I was capable to do that work. And even though there were certain mistakes that the client made, however, at the root cause of that, right over there, that was the issue though. The minute I took the time to address that in myself and make sure that it doesn't happen again, I was able to use that opportunity to overcome from my mistake and then make sure that it doesn't happen again. Likewise, for the second scenario where that happened to me, I realized I had taken on too many projects. And that was the reason for that mistake. And once I addressed that point by not taking on too many projects and not overwhelming myself, I was able to learn from that mistake and move on. But as I mentioned to you before, the majority of freelancers, and that's why I can say positively 96.8 freelancers that I have talked to ever will never ever do this. And even if they're faced with a scenario, they rather ignore their mistakes and move on from there. But if you do this, it'll put you in that 1% category. Another point to consider of things that majority of freelancers don't do on Upwork is that the majority of them do not make video introductions. And I don't understand why that is the case. And let me preface this by saying this too, is that even me as a person right now, as I'm making this video and making this point, I don't have a video introduction. And for me, simply put, it's just because I'm lazy in this regard. I have a solid profile on Upwork, I'm getting jobs, and because I'm getting jobs, I don't want to do this though. Right? I get it. So even as I give this advice, I can take this advice as well. But at the same time also, I can give this advice for the majority of freelancers that are on Upwork who are struggling to get a job, who are brand new on the platform. To leave your video introduction and not do that at all is the worst mistake that you can make. And the reason why that is that number one, it's so easy to do. Think about this right now. Your video introduction literally needs to be less than 1 minute. And even as I'm speaking to you right now, let's do a mock video introduction right over here. So for example, fix my shirt, make sure everything's okay over here. Let's do this right now though. Hi, my name is Abid Mirza. I am a digital marketing expert with a specific focus on HubSpot CRM. I can help you setting up your sales professional tab, your marketing professional tab, and even developing your website within HubSpot. Any need that you have within HubSpot, whether it's something that's very complex, something basic, I can help you with that. And I look forward to you getting back to me so we can have a conversation for your HubSpot needs. Look at that. Literally, as I'm making this video, I did a video introduction and I could have taken that video introduction, cut that out, put that on my profile right now, and I'm done. It's so simple. And the reason why I notice that most people hesitate is because they think it's going to be some complex thing. They have to do a lot of video editing. They have to have a full script. It's nothing like that. All it is a 30-second introduction to who you are, what you do, what you provide. And even if you can't do all that, just a 30-second clip of just you talking, speaking to the camera is more than enough. Because for the client, what they want to see is they want to see the face, they want to see who you are, right? Because they're interacting with you online. So rarely do clients get a chance to actually see who you are as a person, see your face, see your body structure, your body language, how you're speaking to the camera, and they just simply want to see that. So in this scenario, having something over there is better than nothing. But as I mentioned before, the majority of freelancers on Upwork don't even do this. So if you do this, you could put yourself in that category of the top 5% or top 1% of freelancers by simply making a video introduction. The next item that I noticed that majority of freelancers on Upwork don't do is constantly updating their profile. And this is something that I don't understand, because someone who's made a profile, let's just say for example 2 years ago and 3 years ago, and continues to apply with the same profile, well, you've evolved a lot during that period. Even as a person, for some people, taking a picture and simply keeping your picture from 3 years ago to now, it might be a complete different scenario, because when someone talks to you on camera for the first time, they may be taken aback by the fact that what you present yourself in your picture versus what you are now is completely different. For a lot of individuals, you could have got a lot more different experiences during that time. Maybe at that point in time, a lot of things have changed in the industry. And if you don't talk about that, or if you don't change the way you present yourself on your profile, it could be disastrous. Because for a client who's looking at different profiles when looking to see who to give the job or who to set up for an interview, if they find someone with a profile which has dated information, outdated information, or things that are completely missing, they rather avoid that person who seems to be outdated but has the information versus someone who has all the relevant information according to the industry standards of today. So this is something that I recommend as well, that by updating your profile, you'll put yourself in the top category of 5% of individuals who consistently update their profile. And when I say update your profile, I'm not saying you need to do this every single day. That's impossible, and it's not even feasible. But what I do recommend is going back maybe once every 3 months, maybe once every 6 months, looking to tweak certain things, update certain things, maybe change your language a little bit on certain things that you explained over here, whatever it is though. But set up a periodic calendar within yourself, whether it's 3 months, every 1 month, every 2 months, and whatever that period may be, and look to perform and regularly audit your profile in order to enhance it so that it stays relevant according to industry standards. But as I mentioned before, the majority of freelancers on Upwork don't do this. The fifth point over here is that the majority of freelancers on Upwork do not stay consistent. And I don't know why that is. I guess for a lot of people, maybe they treat Upwork like a part-time business, or for a lot of them, people think that if I just apply for a few jobs, all of a sudden I'm going to become famous and rich on Upwork. It doesn't work like that. Upwork, just like every other aspect of life, requires certain fundamentals. And one of those fundamentals are you need to apply for jobs every single day. Every single day, you need to be applying for jobs. Or let's just say, for example, you have jobs and you're already busy, that's fine. But then you need to be tweaking your profile. Or for example, you're working on your skills or your certificates, looking to improve a skill that you had in the industry. Whatever it is though, but you need to be working on Upwork every single day. Maybe you're doing client work every single day. Maybe you're working on developing a new skill. Whatever it is though, but if you don't put in consistent work every single day, you will not succeed on Upwork. And sure, you may be able to get by on Upwork and make a decent amount of income on Upwork. I'm not saying that though. But to truly be successful on Upwork is being consistent. Have a regular schedule and routine, whether it's applying for jobs, whether it's working on clients' work, whether it's updating your skills, your certificates, your profile, or working on developing how to better manage clients who are difficult, whatever that is though. But if you don't treat Upwork like a business where you put in consistent hours, you will not see success. And that is the case right now with the majority of freelancers. And this point obviously goes hand in hand with the point that I mentioned before, but it is that the majority of freelancers on Upwork do not develop new skills. And I can't begin to explain how many times I've seen this, where someone comes on the platform and they say, this is what I do. And 2 years later, they say, this is what I do. But they don't understand that your skill is always evolving. For example, I'm someone right now who has a specific focus on HubSpot, but HubSpot has so many components. It has so many new features that are coming out every single day, and it has so many certificates that are there as well. But if I came in there and said to myself that, okay, the skills that I attained the first day I made my profile, I'm going to keep those skills and not work on anything else, I would have never gotten the same amount of success that I had now with that mentality. But for the majority of freelancers that are on Upwork right now, they simply go by the same skills that they've had maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and they never look to improve themselves. But you need to be constantly working to improve yourself on a day in, day out basis. The next point over here of things that most freelancers on Upwork don't do is looking at their competitors' profiles. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is whatever the industry you're in, whether it's accounting, whether it's engineering, whatever the industry you're in though, if you take a look at all the profiles that fit your category of, for example, expert status, they've made this much amount of money, whatever that situation is though, and if you take a look at other individuals who are in the same category as you and look at their profiles, you can then do an analysis to see how they're presenting themselves, how they're positioning themselves. But for the majority of freelancers on Upwork, they're so involved and their head is so focused and narrowed down into what they're doing, they barely take the time an opportunity to look left and right and to see what's around them. Because think about this for a second. Whatever industry you're in, there's only so many freelancers who are going to be in the same industry as you with the same qualifications, with the same amount of money that's been earned on Upwork, and you understand what I'm trying to say over there. So when those same individuals are always applying for the same jobs on Upwork, it makes sense to understand your competitors and do a competitor analysis to see how they're presenting themselves. Maybe there's a profile, or maybe there's an individual that presents their profile in a way that they start with client testimonials first. Maybe there's an individual that starts off by presenting their exams first and say, look, these are all the exams that I've completed, or these are all the skills that I have, or these are all the companies that I've worked with. Whatever the situation is, if you are not taking the time to analyze how other individuals in your field are presenting yourself, you have no idea if the way you're presenting yourself makes the most amount of sense or not, or if it's successful or not. Because if people who have the same amount of degrees as you and same amount of skills as you, and you look at their profile, but they're getting much more jobs than you in comparison to what you're getting, or they're getting paid much higher than what you're getting, that points out something that is incorrect or wrong with your profile that needs to be adjusted. But the only way to do that is to do a competitor analysis. So what I recommend over here, go on Upwork. If you have a client account, great. If you don't make a client account, then what you do is you search for talent. And when you search for talent, you can then go in there, take a look online and take a look and search for the exact requirements that you have to see what other freelancers' profiles come up. Then you can open those profiles, take a look yourself, and to see where exactly you stand over there. And that will give you a good idea of what you're doing versus what you're not doing. And like I said before, the majority of freelancers do not do this on Upwork right now. And this next point kind of goes back to the one I talked about before about the skills, but it's a little bit different as well. That is adding relevant certificates. The majority of freelancers on Upwork do not add enough certificates. Any industry, whether it's accounting industry, digital marketing, whether it's sales, whatever it is though, has certain standard certificates that you can do. You can do certain exams and add certain certificates to make yourself look certified. But the majority of freelancers on Upwork do not do this. And the best example that I can give is that when you go to a doctor's office, you'll notice on the wall, the doctor has plaques and plaques and plaques of all the certificates that they've completed and all the degrees that they have. Why is that? They want you to feel that you are in the hands of someone who's an expert, who has the prerequisite training and the knowledge and education to treat you for what you need. In this exact scenario, if a client's coming to you with a problem, they're also looking for someone who is certified, who can say that I've had all these certificates and training and degrees and all these things so that you can be rest assured I can take care of you. But from the majority of freelancers that I've seen on Upwork right now, they do not do this at all. And they rarely, maybe they have one certificate, but rarely do they have enough certificates that is required for the industry that they're in. And this is the last point that you've all been waiting for that I talked about in the beginning of the video. So if you stuck around over here, I'm sure you'll benefit from this point, which is that majority of freelancers on Upwork do not treat their client's business as if it's their own business. And what do I mean by that? The majority of freelancers that I've talked to on Upwork, they simply get a task or a project, they finish their work and they move on from there. Rarely do they spend the time to put themselves in the client's shoes and think about their business needs first and think to themselves, is this client's business profitable? Are they doing enough to optimize their business? What are the weaknesses in their business? What is their competition in their business? How are they positioning themselves from a marketing perspective? What can be improved upon? Most freelancers don't care about this at all. And what happens over here is that they get the job, they perform the job, they move on from there, and that's that, and they look for another job though. However, what they don't realize is that they're missing the most golden opportunity for recurring and long-term work. The reason why that is that clients are always looking for people who treat their business like it's their own. And for them, that means that person is invested as much in their own business as they are in their own business as well. And for a client, they will go above and beyond and out of the way to retain that individual over there who comes with this mentality versus having someone else who may be more qualified, who may know more things, but at the same time treats their business like it's anything else though. Nobody wants to feel like that. And I can tell you right now, The majority of freelancers on Upwork don't do this at all. And the reason why that is that they haven't developed their mindset or their understanding to understand the fact that what is the potential benefit of this. But once they do that and they understand that this becomes a golden opportunity for repeat business, for the clients to develop an attachment with you, so that for the client, anytime they have any need, they'll come to you. And again, what does that mean? More revenue for you, more longer relationship. The client may refer you to somebody else who also has a similar need as well. There's so many opportunities over there. But because most freelancers are so narrow-minded and so focused on what they need to get done, for them, it doesn't even matter. If you learned a lot from watching this video, I can promise you'll learn much more from watching this video over here, which talks about the 10 reasons why people fail on Upwork. Make sure to tune into that as well. See you next time.